Morning again, everyone. Well, we usually say that, I came all the way from Toronto, right? Good morning again, everyone. Good morning, Ottawa. Good morning, morning. It's such a joy to be here this morning, actually. It's sunny days, right? Very calm weather. I didn't actually have to put on my jacket, which I had to do in Toronto before heading out. Happy International Women's Day. I would say that, of course, I know that it was on the 8th, but then I would say that because we keep celebrating ourselves every day, isn't it? So happy International Women's Month, okay, or whatever. Yeah, it's good to be here. It's good to be here. And thank you again, Mo, for those introductory remarks. I think it resonates deeply with me, and I echo, those words again when you say, when you have a group of men supporting you on the side, it also helps, doesn't it? It's important that we have them, and it's important that we cultivate relationships with them. It's always important. No man is an island. I remember again, we're in a male-dominated world, whether it's in the marketplace or in the workplace. And so cultivating relationships with these groups of people is important. It helps us, it fast-tracks our journey, and it helps us along the way. So I do have my speech also, but I'm going to read from my speech, okay? I'm going to read, so I do want to acknowledge quickly Mo Modupe-Adara, the founder of Afroculture Media, your board and partners, and the distinguished panelists, Sharon, Trina, Tammy, Mari, Chichi, and Stephanie. It's good to have you here. Thank you for supporting this, particularly because Mo says it's our very first stop at this type of event in Canada. So it's really great for you to all be here to support. All the remarkable women present here today, thank you for joining us. And the men in our midst, thank you again for joining us. I'm really deeply honored to join you on a day like this, actually, to commemorate the celebration of International Women's Day. I wanted to mention to you that there have been many celebrations around, as you can imagine, and as we should rightfully do. But I wanted to quickly say that International Women's Day prompts a lot of organizations around us to spotlight their leading women. So it's usually a celebration of who are the leading women in this organization, let's spotlight them. Who are the leading women in community, let's spotlight them. Of course, these gestures are they're commendable, but I think they're a little restrictive and confining, if you ask me, because then it confines the celebration and advocacy for women to a particular month or a certain day, rather than actually a continuous celebration of what we do, who we are, how we stand in community. And so this is really important for us to take note in our little spaces, wherever we found ourselves. It's important that we do not inadvertently diminish the continuous efforts made by women on a day-to-day basis, and of course a dire need to address the major challenges that we're faced with, because it still impedes our progress in the workplace and in the marketplace. So women must continuously be celebrated on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, for all the work we do at home, at work, with the people who are married, our men, our families, our children, with the single people, in their workplaces and schools, wherever we find ourselves. Women must continuously be celebrated. I dare say so. I dare say so, because I know exactly what it means to be a woman in the workplace as a homemaker, all the things that we're doing, managing all of the frontal parts of work, of life, and of families. And so again, I would actually ask that we give ourselves a pat on the back and give a round of applause to ourselves because of all the things that we've been doing. Thank you. All right. Achieving genuine equality demands sustained commitment from both the public and the private sectors. And we must implement and uphold policies that support and elevate women, ensuring that future generations inherit a more equitable landscape. At the CASI Foundation, we remain steadfast in advocacy, striving to advance women, youth, and entrepreneurs, aiming to start, scale, or transform their businesses across vertical industry sectors, even across borders. Today, as we gather again to honor the contributions of women worldwide, particularly those in Ottawa and across Canada, it's important to mention again that your resilience, your determination, your grace in managing families, careers, and ventures are truly inspiring. The theme for International Women's Day 2025 is Accelerate Action. However, this afternoon I will be discussing the topic, elevating voices and inspiring change. And so, well, because I do a lot of research work, I usually like to start with the research part of it. Yes, we're celebrating ourselves, but where are we? What's the current status of women? Canada's rich history, with the contributions of determined women and so on, who have championed gender equality across the nation, must be mentioned. Women who have fought and secured rights that are now fundamental to Canadian values: the right to vote, the right to earn property, the right to earn fair wages, the right to be recognized as persons under the law. These were rights fought for by women like you and I in Canada. Today, women are protected from discrimination by the Canadian Human Rights Act because of the efforts of these types of women. In education and employment, Canadian women are among the most educated globally, with a significant percentage holding college and university qualifications. The employment gap between men and women has narrowed, though the disparities persist, and in business, as of 2024, approximately 18% of Canadian businesses are majority owned by women. A few examples I quickly cite. Broadband TV, for instance, founded by Shadit Rafi, Clerco Michelle Romanov, who is a serial tech entrepreneur on CBC's Dragon's Den. Burwell Eva Wong, who is the CEO and co-founder, who created a fintech company that provides free credit scores to Canadians across the nation. In fashion, we're present. Knixwear, Joanna Griffithson, she's the CEO and founder of Knixwear, operating across Canada, impacting generations of women and setting the example for for people who actually want to go into such sectors. In food and beverages, we're not missing. We have Minhat Breweries, Distilleries. We have wineries, Manjit Mahas, who is the co-founder and CEO and leads the company that produces various alcoholic beverages supplied and circulated and distributed across Canada. And so we have quite a number of them: Peekaboo Bings, we have Tracy Costa, we have She Native Goods, so we have them across the nation. And we can draw examples. They are veritable examples of what is possible within the women ecosystem, particularly if you're an entrepreneur and looking to set up your own venture and prosper, profit from them. So we're not just creating businesses, we're also in the workplace at a C-suite level, executive level, in various sectors in the corporate world. And that's kudos to us women. However, I wanted to point that out because although the number is growing, the challenges in accessing funding for women, particularly, the challenges of equity pay, they still remain. They remain with us. And so they all, we must continue to fight. We must continue to push forward in this regard to ensure that these challenges and the gaps are bridged, covered, reduced, whatever we need to do through corrective actions or, remedial measures wherever we are. And we're not just waiting for government, I dare say, to correct all of these gaps in our own little spaces. We have the capacity, we have the ability, we have the strength to make sure that all of these gaps are met. Let's quickly talk about underrepresentation in politics and in leadership. I know that we're celebrating ourselves today, and I smile when I say that, but then it's always a call to action when I get an opportunity to, to hold a microphone to say, women in politics, what are we doing? Not everyone will be interested in business. Not everyone will be interested in politics. Some would actually rather go into the workplace, and become, rise through the ranks, become the join the C-suite and so on. But it is important that if you have a desire, we take a stab at it. We look for the people, like in the opening remarks, like was mentioned, find the people who are already there, get connected to them. Let's make sure that we're in politics. Let's make sure we're in leadership. Underrepresentation in politics and leadership it's so important. It's important for us to mention. It's important for us to mention it because I think it was only yesterday that one of our own people was also appointed as Minister of Democratic Institutions and the leader of the government in the House of Commons in Canada. And I think we should give her a warm applause for that. 34-year-old, so it's important. We must take note of this. It's important because that particular lady, as it's publicly noted, also came into Canada as a refugee, so the story is there. So we must understand that these things are possible, like the convener of this session mentioned to us earlier on. So as we're fighting to nip the wage gap, as we're fighting to get funding, as we're fighting, to get access, because a major challenge that women face is the challenge of access to mentorship, access, to funding, access to sponsorship, access to practically everything. Clients, they start the business, they struggle to get the funding, they finally get the funding, they struggle to get the clients, they finally get the clients, they struggle to make the profits, and so on and so forth. And all kinds of taxes are imposed on women from time to time. So they have to struggle with all of this, yet we know that if you dare to trust a few things into the hands of a woman, you can imagine what happens from managing the children, making sure they're in school, managing if they have a spouse, they manage the spouse also, they make sure that they behave, and so they do all of this, and then they also have to manage community, they start the business, 3 other businesses open on the street, and then they are managing again how to struggle with competition. They, sabotage, in some cases, competition, in other cases. And so sometimes, and I hope we do get an opportunity to talk about that, a lot of people then begin to tell us, how do we manage all of these challenges? It's actually because we're very strong people, in case you didn't know. So again, I said, let's give ourselves a round of applause because we manage a lot of situations and we're able to cope with them. We multitask, we're cooking, and we're on the phone, and we're telling our children, have you picked up the bus? Are you on the bus? Oh, the spouse calls, are you able to do this? Somebody else calls from community, I have this issue, and you pause the phone, you're trying to solve every problem every step of the way. And this is the life of a woman. And it's important that we understand that women are the ones who have the capacity, who have the ability, and who have the strength to actually inspire change in our community. So today, let's quickly talk about what it means to elevate other people's voices and what it means to inspire change. What does that mean to me personally, as someone who has worked extensively in community with a lot of group, a lot of ecosystems. So for instance, CASA Foundation, quickly talking, and I'm sure I'll get an opportunity to maybe during the Q&A to talk about that. We happen to be one of the 30 organizations appointed by the federal government of Canada to manage the Black Entrepreneurship Program, which is a program for, the 100 million program, and then also make sure that loans are given to women on one side of that, training, capacity, building capacity, capacity workshops and so on. So you can imagine how many people we've come in contact with who need to talk to us from time to time. These are the challenges we're faced with. Now I have them loan, but there are no customers coming. What do we do? Now I have, because before then it was actually how to access funding. So, and then the question was, what did you think you were going to do with the money in the first place? Did you have that set up? What's your business plan looking like? We talked about all kinds of things. So we realized that there are a lot of challenges that we're dealing with. Even time is a challenge for women to sit down and actually think about ourselves. And so we must create opportunities. That's why I put that here. That's what it means to me personally, to elevate voices of other people, understanding time management, how to sit down and think about ourselves, how to manage ourselves, manage the businesses that we're running or the career that we want to run or manage, and how to build relationships. You create opportunities for other people by connecting them to your ecosystem, connecting them to groups that they need to belong to. So if we do have platforms and people are into fashion and some of the sectors I mentioned earlier, perhaps it might be your role to connect them to the next venture, the group who has what you already have, and connect them and lead them. It's important that we do so. It's important because when we do so and women build businesses and expand beyond the border, and some actually within cities, they are just creating the business and expanding within their city, some across the region, some across continents. It's important that we know then that securing a seat for other women at the table is also critically important. Some people are already sitting at some tables. Some people need to sit at those tables. So yeah, I tell a lot of people I'm tired of hearing I'm the only person that sat at the table. Let's cut that crap. We need to bring other people to the table. Don't be the only one sitting at that table. You say, I looked around and I was the only one. And so what did you do about it? That's a question I ask other women. Let people come to the other table. Bring other women. Advocate for justice. Foster advancement. Because when we speak and we're heard, we pave the rule for other women. Amplifying voices or elevating the voices of other women means for us to foster the culture of empowerment. Empower other people. A lot of challenges all around us. Different strokes for different folks. So people want different things. From the people who speak to you on a daily basis, have you found out what their needs are? If they call you a mentor, for instance, how can you help them? How can you help them? Because a lot of people need help. A lot of people also have some skills, talents, competencies. They just don't know how to manage those things in a way that it works well for the community. So how do you help people manage the resources available to them in such a manner that it now becomes available to the community because you have management skills anyway. You remember she alluded to that when she spoke, that's more. They have management skills and so on. Now they're able to hone your skills for you and then make it available to other people within the community. It is our role and it is one of the fastest routes towards elevating the voices of other people within our community. Now, I say here, although the challenges persist, from all the responsibilities to managing your own mental well-being, from bootstrapping, seeking scarce resources and so on. But we just have to accelerate in action, which is a theme for International Women's Day 2025. Just means that we have to be intentional about the support we give. So yes, we're talking about it, but now we have to act. Action means we step out of our comfort zone and actually ask. It's one of the major reasons we have to make ourselves available, as people are, creating initiatives like this, for instance. He says it's the first time. So I know a few people look at it and say, oh, it's the first time. Oh, so what are they going to say? But we're here. So we can get the answers to those questions that other people might have. And that's being intentional. We need to be so. Offer genuine support to fellow women. Create opportunities with the platforms that we have, with our access to other spaces. Those access have been given to us for some reason. So let's make sure the access is available. Connect people, facilitate introductions, network with them. Yes, do your research. Of course, you can't do that for everyone. Of course, we know that will be a big ask, right? But do your research, but make sure you connect people because you have adequate information. Advocate for other people. Speak up. Let's speak up for other people. They are not in the room. It's called sponsorship. They are not in the room. You have an idea of what they do. Speak up for them. I know a group that can do this. I know a group that can do that. It's important. When you mentor people, let's ensure again that we find out what their needs are. So we're not just talking. Mentorship usually, I guess it's the most used word now, but I think it's one of the fastest ways for people also for their voices to be heard, because it's actually helping people to get, to where you are and perhaps even beyond where you are. And you're clapping and cheering them on as they move on. Let's avoid sabotage. I wanted to mention that because, we're celebrating ourselves today. Because we need to debunk the myths, I call it a myth, that and we need to challenge that notion when they say that women are their own worst enemies. I'm not sure many people have heard that before, that in the workplace, when women want to rise up, then you find other people shunting them or shutting them down and things like that. So we hear that. I call it a myth, in my mind, like it doesn't really, so let's just say the best way to manage that is to actually celebrate and learn to collaborate with other people. Of course, like-minded people. Yeah, I mean, it's a natural order that we want to collaborate with like-minded people. So let's do that. And so, how can we address all the persistent challenges? I mentioned here that women can navigate the business world faster and profitably. And when I say profitably, I'm not just talking about the revenue. I'm talking about, something that is worth your while, that you can really sit back and say, it was the right action. It was the right step for me to have gone into this type of business. You need to seek business mentors to do that. So I quickly mentioned that one of the fastest ways to do that is to seek business mentors. Business mentors are those ones that are already in that game, the business that you're looking to do. And you seek, some audience, some time with them, find out what their challenges are, so that they can help you navigate the journey. You really don't need to step into the challenges that other people have already experienced. So you move forward from there. It's faster, it makes your journey faster. And how can those with limited credit histories access necessary funding? The necessary funding or their needed funding. There's the peer-to-peer lending. There's access to pitches, pitch grants, and so on. And I'm sure we can also talk about that. Some people talk about building business and advisory boards. Connect with your old schoolmates. Connect with your ecosystem groups or the accelerator you belong to. Some of them, you might actually find that for you, it's a veritable source of finding people for your advisory boards and so on. And so on. And you see, esteemed ladies in the room today, let me quickly assure you that this is not just a speech I'm giving. These were the ways, these steps were some of the steps I took when we started some of our business ventures. I'm a businesswoman. Yes, I'm a professor, I teach at the university, but I'm actually a businesswoman. So I'm not just teaching theoretically. I actually practice entrepreneurship. We have several business ventures, including fundraising and entrepreneurship ventures, accelerating, and so we do a lot of business across Canada and in Africa. And it was the fastest way for me to connect with the people who were already in the sector, particularly in Canada. How did you do it? Asking questions. It doesn't take us, it should take us donkey years to do that. And so asking those questions would help you to navigate the journey faster. You ask the first person, they don't answer you. You reach out to the next person until 10. Number 10 will answer you, I'm sure, at some point. So don't give up because 2 people didn't answer you or attend to you or respond to your email. Keep answering. And that's exactly what she said she did, reaching out on LinkedIn or watching and monitoring and so on. Now, as I wrap up today, I wanted to tell us also, mentioning it again, that these were some of the steps I took, like I mentioned, and those steps helped me to learn the lessons of knowing when to start, enduring even after I had started, enduring sometimes even some form of adversity, competition, and so on. But you're able to go on because competition will always be there. Don't get me wrong. They will always be there. People are looking to do the business. Some people look at your business model and they tell you, I can even do it better. So why wouldn't they try? Competition will always be there. What is important, though, is that we have to manage and learn how to complement ourselves, even when we're in the same sector. And then we ourselves have to understand the need to improve and keep improving through research and through a lot of studies. And what I realized then is that until we improve, growth, scaling, like scaling our business, expanding, and things like that, they really wouldn't happen fast until we improve ourselves. And competition is there to actually challenge us, to challenge the status quo and so on. At each stage of all of these processes, it requires discipline. It requires doggedness. A lot of people say it's grit or whatever, God's grit and so on. Discipline, be dogged at what you do. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep trying. There's a place of not giving up. There's a place of wrapping up if it's just not working. And I'm sure we can talk about that. But there's that grit, that doggedness in us that ensures that despite the adversities and all the challenges being thrown at us, we stay with it. We stay put because we believe that this is a purpose for us. It's not just something we stumbled into. It's something that we need to do for other people. And so it's important that although we may have been faced with all kinds of painful experiences, but depending on the support you have, entrepreneurs thrive based on support. All right. So today, as I wrap up, I now want to say to all of us, whether you're in business and so on, or whether you're business leaders or women leaders in the room, that small and medium enterprises are the economic engine of any nation. They constitute almost 80-something% in Canada as we speak. It is important for us to encourage our women to go into business. A lot of people are into, in the workplace, they're working, but they have the capacity also, depending on your culture, to actually get into the kitchen in the evening and bake some cakes and sell, and distribute some of this, some of their whatever they make, beads, cakes, whatever it is. Like I see a lot of display this afternoon. We must do that. Don't say because you are in the 9-to-5 job and you have a capacity, because not everyone will be an entrepreneur. Remember that. Some are actually intrapreneurs within organizations, working to build other organizations. They are entrepreneurs, but they're called intrapreneurs because they're within a corporate, like a corporate entity. So you must find your calling and you must push at it. Don't let anyone deter you or the challenges that you face today. That's exactly what we did when we started CASA Foundation. It's a non-profit, but we realized that we couldn't sustain CASA Foundation as a non-profit. So yesterday we've been appointed to manage a huge fund, but this is our 15th year. We would have closed down in the 5th year if we didn't create other business ventures. The reason we were able to stay till the 15th year was because we created another organization called the IFCAP Corporation, IFCAP Investment Capital. And that organization raises capital for women. We funded about 51 women founders with their own seed capital. So we started doing that, earning something from it. And so whatever we earned from it, we were able to devote a part of it to the nonprofit. So that's why we were able to navigate that. We were not discovered until much later. So yes, we're 15 years today, and we're managing some of these huge funds for the other groups. But would we really have stayed till 15 years if we didn't have something else to fuel the dream? So that's important. If you have the dream, if you have the motivation, please get started and do what you need to do. Collaborate and partner with others. No man is an island. You really can't do so much alone. It's important that we know that. Let's collaborate with other people. For business leaders in the room today, let's create specific ecosystems to encourage women, whether they're in trade, whether they're in business. Everyone needs something from your ecosystem. And when I say ecosystem, you know, like your group, it's just as simple as that. Whatever group you have, whether it's even as simple as a WhatsApp group, it's useful to someone and people will learn from that. Now, I have to complete this and say for women leaders, mentor and sponsor people, and for those ones aspiring to scale their businesses or even to start, you yourselves, you also need to join some other groups yourself. You know, instead of waiting for the mentor, because sometimes it's faster for people to reach you where you are at than to start looking at you again because you're just starting, because it's a lot of work to get started. It's a lot of work, believe you me. Now, as we wrap up, as I wrap up here, I wanted to say also that strategic alliances are very important. So, who are your allies? In this room today, look around yourself or ask the question when you have a moment yourself, by yourself. Who are your allies? Who has your back? Who can you call? Everybody has got to have that. The lady mentioned it again more when she started. She said she couldn't have done any of this without the support that she has. Men can be very supportive. Yes, we're in a male-dominated environment, but they can also be very supportive. You just need to get their buy-in. And it's important to get their buy-in because you're the one looking for something, isn't it? So sometimes you need to get the buy-in. But if you think that that's a no-no, you know, value issues, there's no value alignment, there's no meeting of minds, and so on, of course, take a walk, but we are saying it's important that we bring them along the way if you think they will help your venture. I leave this with you this morning, ladies and our gentlemen. Each time a woman stands up for herself, she stands up for all women. So let's keep standing up. That's Maya Angelou. She's one of our virtual mentors at CASA Foundation. And it's Obama that said, Barack Obama, that says that we ourselves are the change that we've been looking for. So yes, the quota is coming from government sectors. Yes, they're looking for quotas. Yeah, women should have this certain percentage and so on. Let's tell them, despite, irrespective of any quota that anyone is giving us, let them give it to us, but let us make a statement by what we ourselves are doing so that the funding will increase, the mentorship will increase, and we ourselves will become the desired group of people that people want to actually mentor. We need to be mentorable, is what I'm saying. So not wasting anyone's time, managing time, showcasing results, and making sure that our ecosystems continue to develop. Ladies, thank you again for your attention this afternoon. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
We have a question and answer session for her, and I'll just hold the mic in case there are people around that need some questions here. Stand now, Lucy.
I'm fine.
You sure?
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
So who has questions for her? Thank you for speaking here today. My question is, as an entrepreneur, when do you know that it's time to wrap up on a project? Like, what are the key indicators that show that you have to wrap up on a project or a venture? Thank you.
Thank you so much. What's your name? I didn't get that.
Cynthia.
Cynthia, thank you so much for the question. When is it time to wrap up? It's different for different people. Like we said, different strokes. It depends on your sector also. Some sectors, it takes a while for things to, pick up and mature. But you would know. Usually, before you start a venture, you need to tell yourself or answer a few questions. What am I supposed to do? You know what I mean? Like, I call it the 4 or 5 questions of entrepreneurship. Like defining yourself. Who am I? What am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to do it for? Where am I supposed to do it? Or with whom? When you answer some of those questions, as you navigate that journey, you will understand if this is really what you're supposed to be doing. I call it the question of entrepreneurship and the question of your purpose. Because if it is really what you're supposed to do, if it will find a way, like it will find some expression and then some kind of support, no matter how little, will be rallied around it. So answering those questions helps you first and foremost to know if you're even in the right business. Then it gives you the strength to fight. Don't worry, when I say fight, women actually are fighters. I'm not talking about, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so it gives you the strength to push is what I mean. And if you have done that, and if you've answered those questions, adversities, challenges, some of the things I mentioned, and you're in the 3rd year and you're in the 4th year, after a while, you may actually have to take a pause. And so the way I do this is actually by answering some of those questions, making sure I have the resources, what resources have I got on the table, my own, and so on, which top friends, like 10 friends, can put 100, put 2, so that I have also a support from, a group of people, so that when things go awry, or it seems like it's not happening the way I expected, then I can take a back seat and say, 10 friends, who are they? $100, 500, 1,000, who are they? It's called social capital. Every woman needs that. Usually because we don't answer some of those questions, we think we need to wrap up. And I mentioned it in my speech that you must know when to wrap up. But sometimes you may need to go back to the drawing board and say, have I answered these questions? Do I have my social capital? People I can rely on. And they're not your first go-to sometimes. Sometimes they are because you're looking to raise all the capital. Once you've done that and you've utilized all of those, because those are resources around you now, and then it's thinning out, then you've got to give yourself some time and say in 6 months or in 1 year. That's why I said it's a function of which sector you belong to. If it's not working after you've tried all of those, then it might be time to wrap up because you've given it your best. The issue though is a lot of people haven't done those things that I first mentioned. They haven't answered the question of, is it what I'm supposed to be doing? They haven't answered the question of how much social capital have I got? So you have your money, but those people, you need them. Family, friends, it's called friends and family money. You need to use them because there are resources around you. So don't give up until you've used those ones is what is my answer to you today. And if you have, then you now begin to set some timeline and say, 3 months, 6 months, because anything can change. I quickly answer by citing a quick story. In 2019, we started another venture called Entrepreneurs Point, and you can check it out, entrepreneurspoint.com. We started it in 2018. 2019, it just wasn't working. You look like, what is this? How am I going to do this? And it was an accelerator, incubator, people come in and all of those. And we did a lot of that, tried and struggled. I said, this is what I'm supposed to do. It's part of it. But we were losing a lot of money. And so until my spouse, who also happens to be my partner, said to me, all the money we're supposed to eat with, we're going to use it to do this until it runs out. I said, just give me 5 months more. That's a fighter and defining your purpose that I talked about. Give me 5 months more. I really didn't know what could happen in 5 months. I'm telling you. But you know how when you're challenged and somebody says, we have to wrap this up, it's not working. And so, that type of thing. I said, give me 5 months. Give me. And I sat back. I really didn't know what I was going to do. in the process, we started teaching. So it's supposed to be an accelerator and a place where people come, build the ideas, meet with other people, like co-found, get capital, get mentorship, and so on. So we added training to it because I just completed a degree program in leadership. So I started doing leadership, mentorship, and training people, and then charging for it. I wanted to see who would come. So a few people would come and pay for that. So I used whatever I had in the house, whatever it wasn't part of the program to do that. We introduced it, and within 2 months, we got at least, if I remember, about 15 people taking that training and paying. But it wasn't covering the cost because we had waited for too long. It seemed like the last minute idea, but it was a starting point. That was what I was doing when the pandemic suddenly happened to us. If you remember that 2019, then 2020, around March, the pandemic, that shut down the entire system. It was that pandemic that was a turnaround for us, personally, I would say, because that was when everybody had to go back home. Nobody could do anything, if you recall. And a lot of people now started asking us that now that they're not able to do this, they're not able to work. Dr. Olu, what about this, your training that you're doing? Can you give it to some members who are working from home so that although they don't have access to some of these things, they can do it online? You know where I came from? Well, which is Nigeria and Africa. We usually don't quickly say no. We quickly go and research it and then say, oh, how can we do this? What do we do? And that's exactly what I did. I didn't have an idea of how it would work online, but we're already doing it in person. You remember? And so I said, okay, yeah, we know online. So I was telling people we'll use Skype. There used to be something called Skype that we would use Skype to call and all that. All the Zoom we're talking about now, it wasn't popular at all then. It was Skype, something called Skype. So I told them we will use Skype, and then I told my team, we'll do it this way, we'll present it, it will be like a phone call, people will dial in, and I'll be talking to them. Because we got a contract finally. And that was a breakthrough for us, personally. That leadership program turned things around for us, and we started, as we were researching into Skype, we just had people sending around Zoom calls, and we're like, what is Zoom? But we tested it, it worked. And we just flowed into that for 2 solid years. Because the organization gave that to us, a whole project, we just were running it back to back, and it was paying our bills right through pandemic. We haven't shut down till today. As a matter of our entrepreneurs point, it's now 8 years as we speak today, and we didn't shut it down. So sometimes it's something that it could be done. It may not need to wrap up, but I was threatened. And I think that challenged my best instincts to say, after all the things I put into this, what's going to happen? That's not the story for everyone. You will know yourself if it's not happening. But I'm just saying to you, find a way to check it out by answering some of those questions. Where should you be located? Who am I? What am I supposed to do? Who will I do it for? The who will I do it for is the question of your customers. Who are they supposed to be? Are you supposed to serve everyone, or a certain number of people that is, curated specially for them, that will value what you got to offer? Because not everyone will also value your product or your initiative or whatever they are. So you got to answer those questions, because it will put some fight in you to say, I'm not going to allow this to just die like that. You know what I mean? But then you will also know as an entrepreneur when it's time to run. You will know. There's an instinct. It's in your guts. You know, I need to move on to the next thing. This is just not working. You get what I mean? I hope those ones will help. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so do you have any other questions?
I just want to thank you for your speech. It was very meaningful to me, as it was for all of us, I'm sure. As for myself, I have questions for you, but I'm still very new in my career, and I know where I imagine myself in the next 1 or 2 years, but I struggle to find my spark. I don't know how to come across it. So I was wondering if you have any advice for that, for how I'm able to imagine what I'm doing in 10 years down the line even.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And what's your name?
Yashvi.
Yashvi. All right. Thank you for your question. That's a question of your career now. What am I supposed to do? A lot of people define that in different ways. For some people, they say it's their call, what they're called to do, like what they should be doing and so on. Usually I ask, when people ask me that question, the list isn't exhaustive. I'm sure people find this in different ways, but I tell them to make a list. Because not everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to do at any time. Some people knew from H2 or like whatever, like a lot of people tell us, oh, from my family, they had always called me a lawyer. Now you will be a lawyer. Actually, my culture, where we come from, they have a way of doing some of these things. Say, that's a lawyer in the house, that's this one. And so those people just kind of grow into becoming that. And I must mention to you that my daughter actually did law. She never practiced. She has not practiced till today. Because, so just quickly citing that. So sometimes it's not right. You just encourage them and they now say that's it. But then when it's really time, she's doing something else. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. Anyway. Yeah. So usually I tell a lot of people, it's the things you do without effort. It's the things you do without effort. It's the people you touch without effort. I still have three other engagements today after this one. It's important that you understand it. And a lot of us may not understand it. So I did investment banking for 17 solid years and rose to vice president position. Where I was coming from. Now, is that what I was supposed to do? Oh, I'm not sure if it was just a job. I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. The money was very good. Don't get me wrong. So, but it was when I got into Canada that I started doing all of this. Went for, to do my doctorate, started teaching, and then, I started flowing better. But we raised capital through another company today, and I do it well because of that experience. I wouldn't have been able to do it well too. So you got to find it. What do you do that's innate? Like you do it without effort. Like you don't even have to read anything, you just flow with it. What are those things? You need to write them down. And there will be many. You need to write them down. At some point, then you need to prioritize them. Which ones flow better than the other? At some point, you need to also look at the values. Do they align with your values? So for instance, if you have a partner and you're married, you have children, and the goal is in China, for instance, and they're schooling in Canada, for instance, you want to balance that and say, is this the right time for me to pull the children away? Because there's got to be value alignment. Because your goal then could become frustrating if the people around don't actually fit into the goal, and they are the people that matter most. Because the goals must be enjoyable, like you're running it and you don't even enjoy it anymore. So balancing it within terms, like a 2-year term, a 2-year window, a 3-year plan, a 4-year plan. Is this really feasible right now? So you got to take a sheet of paper. It's not just one thing, and it will mature as time goes by. Because you go to events like this and then you find people doing a few things and say, this is actually what I'm supposed to be selling or something similar. So it will mature, it will expand. But the core part of it, which is what you're supposed to do, sometimes is one item. But that one item could flow into a few things, like a bakery. And somebody who has like a bakery, like a cafe and so on, and then started with bread, and then suddenly started making a few other things, on the side. And she realizes somebody likes it, because you see your goal without a patronage, like people buying into it, can be frustrating. So you have this dream and idea and you love it, but people don't love it and they're not buying from you. You know what I mean? Or you have this career in accounting, and every time you do your maths, and perhaps you even studied it, everyone always picks errors in everything you do. I mean, I'm not talking about 1 or twice, 3 times. It's every time you do. So you got to balance that, because you've got to go back to the drawing table. And some people say, what would I do if money wasn't even a problem or a challenge? Like the money is there. This will give me the most joy if I use this money to do this. Sometimes some people are able to find it that way. But usually I find that it's something in it that without effort, you're able to do it. Something some people even call a hobby sometimes, and you're just able to transition that into a profitable venture. And even at work, it could be, like yesterday I read, for instance, Goldman Sachs, pardon me, I'm in the investment banking sector, right? So the CEO of Goldman Sachs, I mean, it's all over the news yesterday, like he's been there for donkey years, the biggest investment banking structure in the world, Goldman Sachs. I'm sure a lot of people might have heard about that. And so he's been there for a while, the CEO doing all the work, calling people, and then they discovered he's a DJ in the night. Oh my gosh. It was so funny to me. I mean, because they're complete opposites. Somebody in suits, like looking very serious-minded and so on. And then they discovered it, and then so he came back and said, okay, this is what he does in the night. And I'm like, what? Why would you do this? He said, he's been doing it since he was a young person, I think, and that's just what he loves to do. And I was like, oh my goodness. It's such a difference. Yeah, exactly. Contrast, exactly is the word, because you're supposed to be serious-minded student up in black suit each morning, controlling billions of dollars, investing and all of that, and then we found you as a DJ in the night somewhere, and you have been doing it for a long time, So that's what it means, that you need to know it, you need to find a way to do it, if it's writing, if it's altering, and so on, and you have to find support for it. So before you look to start, look for other people who are in that venture, and then see if you can find some role models, some mentors, to now give you some little pieces of advice here and there. Shall I start? Should I go into it? Because it could also be frustrating if you say, oh, I just recently discovered, now I know it, and I'm leaving my job. In 3 months, the bills have got to be paid. So you got to think about it carefully. It's not just something you find and then you leave it and now go into that particular one, because you got to be practical about your responsibilities. I hope that helps you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hello, Doc. Can I call you Doc? My name is Winnie Ngola. I'm an interpreter and translator. I just relocated to Canada 4 months ago. And I was browsing on the net, and that's how I fell on the flyer. And I appreciate the fact that I was able to pay through it. It was like, I told my husband, I have to go for this event, because back where I'm coming from Cameroon, I used to be very dynamic during the International Women's Day. So I said, no, I need to make this work here. I want to also mark this day. So I'm really happy, and I'm proud of myself that I was able to come here. And you said something when I was jotting down, talked about access. Like women need accessible people that to really hold their hands. And in my domain, as a translator and interpreter, it's a regulated profession. And since I came, it's quite difficult for me to reach out to translators to please hold my hand. So I want to know, if the people in your field are not quite accessible, what do I do? Can you please give me the action plan for me to be able to deal with that? Thank you, to navigate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, and thank you for making it here. I'm sure it will be worth your while, like you already said. All right, what you need to do, to my mind, is to volunteer. You volunteer your time. Usually when things are a little difficult for you to achieve and quickly from your side, give a free access to yourself. Like, remember again, I mentioned that everyone has some skills, some talents in them. In them, they just need other people to manage, like she mentioned, like you've been able to help her do this and do that. You need to volunteer. It's one of the fastest ways to gain access. So you identify the companies, company 1, company 2, company 3. Yeah, everyone is on info at. That's the way to really quickly reach them, or customer at. They will get the email. Somebody will read it if it's an organization, or clients, customer, or info at. So write them a mail, tell them you really love what they're doing. You would love to volunteer your time to them. This is your experience. This is your background. And I'm not saying give away your talents for free. It's just an inroad, like doors open, and it will just be a foot in the door, as it were. You get in, you do a lot, you learn from the corporate sector, you learn their practices, you learn their policies, you learn their protocols. Every organization and every sector has practices, policies, protocols. You need to learn it, particularly when you're in a new location. So this is really important because if you don't work for them, particularly in that sector, you may not know. Now, like I mentioned, I don't try 3 people. I don't try 4 organizations. I try 10. Why? He makes the journey faster, because even if somebody says no, maybe 1 or 2 would say yes, and then you have a choice. So you need to, in that order, find out a list of groups that might need your services, particularly government, because you always have events, they will need interpreters, and maybe some community organizations, NPOs, non-profit organizations, they will always need that. There are some non-profit organizations that are mandated to have all their events in English and French, because that's actually, this is Canada, right? Remember, so those are the languages. So they need it, for sure. The reason perhaps you've not been able to make an inroad into some of those sectors is perhaps because you're new on one hand, so people really don't understand. I've been at an event before, and that's just a joke. I hope I can wrap up with that. I've been at an event before, and I kid you not. I kid you not. It was the IMF World Bank meetings. I was vice president of Treasury, where I was coming from. I happened to attend with my CEO and the current WTO, and I know I'm on air, the current WTO Director General, her name is Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She was a minister of finance back in Nigeria then. And so we were at this IMF meeting, and I was sitting there just in the crowd as one of the other, with my own CEO. I wasn't speaking. She was the one there. And somebody picked the microphone to do the interpretation. And as she kept on talking, this one would make the comments and she would interpret. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala apparently also speaks French. And she said it was complete balderdash, it was complete rubbish, the lady, at a meeting like that. So know your onions. She actually requested to take the microphone and she became the interpreter at that meeting, and she did it so seamlessly at that level. That's what it means to know your onions. It's important. Yes. When she did that, I was like, oh my goodness. Apparently it was just rubbing off the wrong way. The lady just kept at it. So it's one of the ways people don't actually just one because you put it on your resume. You've got to prove it. It's that part of proving the fact that you know what you're saying, and the fastest way is through volunteerism. I hope you'll be able to find some very good organizations to do that for. And I think, I'm sure we can speak at the end of this meeting also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, I have a question. Is there another person that wants to ask a question? So my question is about women's leadership and economic empowerment. So I just want to ask, in your experience, what are the biggest challenges women face in leadership today, and how can they overcome them?
That's very broad. In leadership, we articulated a few, remember? Yes. The fact that we're not around the table enough, the fact that there are only like 5 or 6% of CEOs across the nations as we speak even today, despite all the advocacy. So what are the challenges that they face when they get into leadership or before they have access to leadership? When they get into it. Women are very capable human beings, multitasking every step of the way. But there's a school of thought that says that there's a lack of, there's a lack of capacity, like incapacity, they say. That they are not capable of managing big things. They are lying, actually, and I'm sure you know. And truly, I don't say that because I'm a woman. I'm actually saying women are capable of a lot of things. We know there's so many things that we do, that we balance, that we're juggling on a daily basis. But the major issues are still the issues of the domestic part of this, largely, to my mind. The fact that you have to juggle family and so on. I think it's Marianne Slaughter, who was the director of policy under Hillary Clinton way back then. I think she's a professor at Princeton now. I'm not sure if she's back to Princeton. She was the one that said, can a woman really have it all? She was the first director of policy under that administration, And she said, can a woman really have it all? And she answered, it's impossible for a woman to have it all, because although she was the first woman appointed to that role, it was a big deal. She was a professor. I'm not sure if it was a professor of law from Princeton or something like that, and I'm sure we can check that out. She resigned after a while. She couldn't cope. And she answered again, a woman really can't have it all. A woman really can't have it all. So she got to that position. She rose and got there. It was a privileged position, but she had to leave. And other people too, like Hillary herself will say, well, we can have it all. Well, but of course, maybe with consequences, if you know what I mean. So, but the issue though is, I think it's Indira, the Pepsi Cola's former CEO of Pepsi Cola, if I remember, who says you can actually have it all. And that there was a way to manage those challenges, the challenges of being, like being sidetracked and sidelined when it's time for promotion, or the challenges of you were due for promotion, nobody gave it to you, or your child, you missed several school meetings, and some of those things, but that you can manage those things by having the necessary support around you. So the challenges are there, and the challenges of not being taken seriously, the challenges of being, like being looked at as, a woman, you know what I mean, by your male counterparts, are they really taking you seriously, and so on. But you can prove it to them. So there are issues, because it would appear like women need to keep proving themselves, But after a while, now we have women prime ministers all over the place, right? Well, not all over the place, but quite a few now. And that speaks to the competence and the capacity of women, unlike the incapacity that's been talked about over and over. With the necessary support, women are able to navigate, the treachery or the tortuous journey of leadership, entrepreneurship, and career. But the challenges remain there. Sponsorship, mentorship. Mentorship being a major part also. Because when you get to that level, who's going to mentor you? A fellow woman? You might find them, but half of the time you do not. That's why they say to us generally that women, we have to demystify that self-sabotaging or women sabotaging themselves and so on. Sponsorship is usually difficult. That's a major one. Because usually the people at that level, you will be either tokenism is at work, tokenism, which means just one woman in the midst of many. So it's just a token, like a rep, just so that you didn't say we don't have a woman. So that's called tokenism. So you would have those and several men. So normally the people that should actually mentor you should be one of those or some of those. But that's why it's a challenge. Because for the man to be your mentor is a major problem already. There are the issues of being misrepresented. There are the issues of, can a man really mentor you in the long term? Maybe after 6 months he's tired, or maybe he's not tired, he wants to, but other people already misrepresented you, and they read meanings into that. There are several issues. So women are not able to find the right type of mentors. Because in all those sectors, because of the prevalence and the percentage that women represent right now, which is about maybe 6 or 7%, if I'm correct, I'm sure we can check that. It used to be 4 or 5%, but now maybe about 7%. CEOs, when you look at it globally, only 7 or 8% of women are CEOs of organizations, as we're speaking today. So who will mentor them? It's the men, because the men got there faster than they. But that's a major challenge already. They can't go for drinks at 1 a.m. in the night, like they would do with their male counterparts. They can't go playing golf with a guy. But the guys do that until 2 a.m. in the morning. And so when it's time for promotion of other women, they are sidelined, they're sidetracked, because you are going to promote the person you've been playing golf with through the night for 6 weeks, don't you think? Yeah, so that's a challenge already. Now, when you talk about sponsorship, then sponsorship also, you're not around the table because it's a male-dominated area. So when they're speaking, the board members, most of them, men, maybe 2 women, tokenism. And then the 2 women possibly won't speak for you. Sometimes there are great women that would speak for you, even when you're not in the room. But half of the time they won't speak because they already see you as a competitor. So they don't want you to be at that table. We are here, we're the only ones there. So that's an issue also. So in the journey of leadership, you have the sponsorship issues because you don't have enough sponsors. Sponsors, people speak for you when you're not there. We don't have enough mentors that are women and that are very strong and that don't see you as a competitor. So that even by mentoring you, they feel confident that they've given you something, but they feel fulfilled because they see you on the platform where you've always been, and they are now coming up and you are not a threat to them. It's very difficult to find women like that. It's usually very difficult. So these are major issues. And of course, remember I mentioned the domestic part, family. and so on. A lot of women have lost their spouses because they are very ambitious. And so when they say that they are very ambitious, sometimes it could be negative. I really don't mind saying I'm ambitious. Some people say, oh, but don't say me women are ambitious. And but I'm ambitious. So some people say, oh, why should it's negative? Don't say. I don't see it as negative. Ambition just means you have a goal to fulfill. You clarified the goal. To me, you have a goal. You've clarified it. You're running after it. You're not leaving everything behind to run after it, but you prioritize those goals and you set some timelines to say, in 5 years, I would love to do this. In 10 years, I would love to do that. And you are really, really doing it. Or you're running behind a bit, it's still part of life. When men do some of those things, they say they're driven. When women do it, they say they are very ambitious. And they say the ambition, that ambition part, they say it in a very negative way, like a lot of women will want to duck under the table, and then, like, I don't do that. I am if you call me ambitious, I am ambitious. If you call me aggressive, I am aggressive. But I know, you know what I mean? Like, you just got to keep telling yourself that it's not bad to really desire to be something or want to become something that you believe you should be. You remember, it's that you believe you should be. Some people say, I want to scale my business into Ghana, across the borders, beyond our neighbors, if you're still interested in that, and so on. So, say things like that and say, oh, cut your coat according to your size. If we cut our coat according to your size, sometimes it's good to do that, remember, because we must also be shrewd managers of resources. But cutting your coat according to your size is important, meaning don't spend resources you do not have. But dream beyond that size, right, is important also, because that's actually what makes you kind of fulfill some of those dreams, if you have them. If you don't have them, that's also important for you to know, because not everyone has the same dream. So for some dreams, they want to do this. For some dreams, they want to serve and do some of the other things that are very dear to their hearts. And they are very valid dreams too. And they must be supported. I hope you understand what I mean. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all that you've said today. I'm sure we've gotten one or two things as you are taking back over. You have a question.